Britain is staring down the barrel of a £30 billion tax bomb. Hundreds of wanted criminals are flooding across the channel, and the royal family is back in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. This is Tuesday, October 28th, and you need to hear what's really happening. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, and today we're diving deep into a story that should make every British taxpayer's blood run cold. I spent years working inside one of the biggest media outlets watching how they twisted facts to fit whatever narrative, kept the advertisers happy and the bosses comfortable. I walked away from that world because I couldn't keep playing that game. Now I'm out here on my own, speaking freely and bringing you the stories that actually matter, without the sugarcoating. If this kind of unfiltered truth matters to you, hit that like button right now and subscribe. And listen, I know asking for support can feel awkward, but this channel runs on your backing. If you believe in independent journalism that doesn't bow to corporate pressure, consider becoming a sponsor. It means everything, truly. It keeps these investigations coming, keeps the lights on, and keeps me free to tell you what the mainstream won't. So let's get into it. Britain's Chancellor is preparing to drop a tax hammer that'll cost ordinary people £30 billion. That's not a typo, that's billion with a B. We're talking about hiking income taxes, raising VAT, slashing pension tax relief, the whole brutal package. And here's the kicker, this completely contradicts the promises they made before the election. Remember those? The pledges about protecting working families? Yeah, about that. They're projecting to actually collect around £26 billion from these measures, which means they'll still need to scrounge up another £4 billion somewhere. So, what's on the chopping block next? They're eyeing inheritance taxes, corporate taxes, employer contributions, and energy companies. Every single one of those will get passed down to you and me. The final decision drops on November 26th when they announce the budget for next year. But wait, it gets better. While they're picking your pockets for every last penny, guess what else is happening? Starting in November, the UK government plans to house about 1,000 male asylum seekers in military barracks across Scotland and southern England. We're talking facilities in Cameron Garrison, Inverness, and Crowborough in East Sussex. These are the same places they previously used for Afghan families, and now they're being repurposed. The official line? It's more suitable and cheaper than hotels. They want to reduce pressure on local communities and cut asylum costs. The plan is to eventually move up to 10,000 migrants into military facilities. Critics are pointing out the obvious. The number of illegal migrants keeps rising, and border control is basically a joke at this point. But sure, let's just warehouse them in military barracks and pretend that solves the problem. And speaking of asylum centres, here's something they don't want you hearing about. Security staff at the Wethersfield Asylum Centre in Essex are speaking out about what they're dealing with daily. Violence from residents, weapons on site, alcohol-fueled parties. This isn't some far-right fantasy. This is what the actual security guards are reporting. Earlier, residents at this centre staged protests about living conditions, and independent organisations flagged serious issues with medical screening and the psychological state of migrants. Authorities claim these staff protests haven't affected operations. Meanwhile, several guards refused to work in protest against new conditions and pay cuts, and they got fired for it. They're complaining about lack of protection, no proper equipment, and getting attacked while on duty. But hey, everything's fine, nothing to see here. Now, before we go further, if you're getting value from this, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about these asylum centre revelations. Your engagement helps this channel grow and reach more people who need to hear the truth. Don't just watch, participate. Let's touch on Ukraine briefly, because the British press is covering this extensively today, and there are some angles here worth noting. Russia is claiming they're taking out foreign fighters on Ukrainian soil, and they're openly suggesting NATO soldiers are on the front lines, threatening them with deadly consequences. The war drags on, with new Russian strikes hitting Ukrainian gas infrastructure. President Zelensky says he's ready for negotiations with Russia, but not on Russian or Belarusian territory, and he refuses any frontline concessions. He's calling on the US to strengthen sanctions against Russia and says Ukraine needs European financial support for the next 2 to 3 years of combat operations. Russia keeps using drones to target Ukrainian civilians, which the press calls crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones strike Moscow and Russian border regions, but somehow that doesn't get the same treatment in the coverage. Interesting double standard there, don't you think? The US is imposing sanctions on Russian oil companies. Russia and Kazakhstan are discussing the impacts. And here's where it gets really theatrical. President Trump warned about America's military potential, including nuclear submarines positioned near Russian shores. Zelensky announced plans to develop a ceasefire agreement within the next 10 days. That's the general picture the British press is painting today, presented exactly as they want their readers to see it. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. The Sun published an extensive piece by their journalist Jeremy Stark about what happened during his visit to Ukraine to film a report. At a checkpoint in Kharkiv, Ukrainian military forces forcibly conscripted his colleague, a translator, who became what Stark calls a victim of the country's conscription crisis. Nearly 4 years after the war started, Ukraine is facing a critical shortage of soldiers. The volunteers have dried up, losses have exceeded tens of thousands, and roughly 1 million men are in hiding, avoiding conscription. Against a backdrop of exhaustion, desertion, and corruption in military recruitment offices, Ukraine's army lacks the infantry to hold the front line. Despite daily life continuing normally in rear cities, frontline soldiers express growing frustration toward those dodging service. Meanwhile, these mobilization squads, the so-called buzification teams, are literally grabbing men off the streets. That's exactly what happened to Stark's colleague. You can read the full translation of this article if you're a channel sponsor. It's in our community tab right here on YouTube. The piece is genuinely long and fascinating. Stark also mentions that during previous trips, he was actually on Russian territory in Kursk, but apparently had no moral qualms about that whatsoever. While we're talking about military spending, Britain is planning to drop £150 million on underwater drones for the Royal Navy, citing rising tensions with Russia. They're expecting to purchase up to 24 drones at roughly £6 million each. These will be used for clearing sea mines and protecting underwater infrastructure, including cables and pipelines. The shift to underwater drones is justified by the need to replace outdated mine countermeasure vessels. Now here's the irony that should make your head spin. Against the backdrop of spending massive amounts on underwater drones and housing migrants, this next bit of information is particularly amusing. In November, Britain will see numerous shops and pubs closing due to financial difficulties and rising costs. Poundland is slashing stores from 800 down to 650. New Look is shutting 11 stores, including their Lewis location. Claire's is liquidating 145 stores after bankruptcy, with closures expected in November and December. The Cottage in Falmouth is closing. The Wetherspoon pub chain is also shutting several locations, including the Watergate in Barnstaple and Baxter Court in Hackney, though they plan to open 15 new pubs under a new franchise model. All these closures come with clearance sales and discounts up to 40%, so I guess someone benefits from shops going under. But mainly, shopping in Britain right now is being hit by what they call shrinkflation, where manufacturers reduce product sizes while maintaining or even increasing prices. Let me give you some examples that'll make your blood boil. Aquafresh toothpaste shrank from 100 millilitres for £1.30 down to 75 millilitres, but now costs £2. That's a 105% price increase per 100 millilitres. Fairy liquid dropped from 600 millilitres to 500 millilitres while staying at £14. Scottish oats got cut in half from a kilogram to 500 grams, while the price jumped from £1.25 to £2.10. Nescafe coffee went from 200 grams to 190 grams per package. Kit Kat chocolate sets lost 3 bars per package, while prices rose from £3.60 to £5.50. Beyond shrinking sizes, manufacturers are also cutting quality. White Kit Kats reduced cocoa butter content to less than 20%, which strips them of white chocolate status entirely. The consumer organization, which is calling on supermarkets to make price and weight information more transparent and easier to compare, so shoppers can actually choose the best value, although it seems like they're not leaving us much choice at all. Remember that movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? We can rephrase it now as Honey, I Shrunk Our Packaging and also raise the prices. But does it work? Oh, the machine works. Do the kids know? Yeah, the kids know. I shrunk them. What? And the Thompson kids too. They're this big now. They're in the backyard. I threw them out with the trash. All right, here's some actually good news, at least for Scottish pensioners. Thousands will receive a one-time heating payment of up to £305 through the Pension Age Winter Heating Payment Programme, which replaced the winter fuel payment. Benefits will be automatically paid in November to at least 880,000 pensioners born before September 21st, 1959, who lived in Scotland between September 15th and 21st of this year. The amount depends on age, household composition, and other benefits received, but if income exceeds £35,000, payments may be reclaimed through the tax system, meaning they'll tax it back. Payments aren't available to those who were hospitalized or imprisoned during the qualification week, or to individuals not entitled to state benefits. So if you were sick and in the hospital during that specific week, they look and say, "Oh, no one's home. Guess you don't need heating money." But most pensioners will receive money automatically, while some need to apply themselves. So check if you're living in Scotland. And there's more. Over 250,000 households in England and Wales will receive letters about a £150 electricity discount through the Warm Home Discount Programme, which covers 6 million households, including low-income families and pensioners. So it's not just Scottish pensioners staying warm on £300. England and Wales get £150. Most recipients will get help automatically, but some will need to provide additional information per instructions in the letter. Those who don't receive a letter by January should call the special hotline. Additionally, several schemes will help keep us warm this winter, offered by major suppliers like British Gas, Octopus Energy, OVO Energy, and EON. These include grants up to £2,000, free blankets, and replacement of faulty heating appliances. Vulnerable groups should register in the Priority Service Register to get additional privileges and at least some protection from the state. Now let's get back to migrants, because The Sun published quite a substantial article today. Turns out hundreds of migrants arriving in Britain through the English Channel are wanted in EU countries for serious crimes, including taking lives, violent acts of a nature that I can't explicitly name here, but you know what I'm talking about. Many are using the British asylum system to avoid extradition. Over the past 2 years, Germany alone sent more than 5,000 such requests. Cases of dangerous criminals being identified in British migration centres are increasing. Some are committing new offences right here in Britain, exploiting gaps in border control and legal obstacles to deportation back to their home countries. The reaction from authorities and opposition points to serious gaps in ensuring public safety, despite mandatory checks on all arriving migrants. But how can you check them when they show up saying they have no passport but claim to be refugees fleeing war? You see the problem here? During King Charles's visit to Lichfield Cathedral, a man from the crowd publicly asked him questions about Prince Andrew's connections to Jeffrey Epstein and alleged police interference in the situation. The monarch ignored these questions, unlike the crowd. You could see one woman very harshly telling that man to shut up. The monarch ultimately left the meeting. Under this pressure, Prince Andrew himself was forced to relinquish the title Duke of York and other honours, and he's under threat of relocation, searching for new housing, including Frogmore Cottage. Reports emerged that he and ex-wife Sarah Ferguson were offered a luxurious residence in the United Arab Emirates if their position in Britain becomes completely unbearable. The decision to give up titles is connected to the posthumous publication of Virginia Giuffre's memoirs and continuing accusations against him, which the prince naturally vigorously denies. And Charles himself is currently avoiding public interaction with Andrew. "You didn't recognize me? Not happy to see me, brother? Just leave me alone. Go your way. I've got business." Got it. London's Metropolitan Police, Britain's largest force, is preparing to spend £5.2 million on new positions in the Culture and Diversity Department. The staff of this apparently vital unit will expand to 64 people. The police events calendar now features such urgent matters as International Pronoun Day and Be Kind to Humankind Week. Obviously, this must help fight crime. This curious decision comes against a backdrop of a £260 million budget deficit, plus plans to cut 1,700 officers and police staff. Taxpayers reasonably noted that Londoners are waiting for patrols on the streets, not endless support groups and awareness weeks about various genders. While the Mayor of London blames the previous government for lack of funds, money apparently was found, just not quite for what taxpayers expected. So let me summarise what we've covered today, because this is a lot to process. Britain is facing a devastating £30 billion tax increase that breaks election promises. The government is warehousing asylum seekers in military barracks, while security staff report violence and weapons at these facilities. Hundreds of wanted criminals from the EU are using the asylum system to avoid justice. Ukraine is facing a conscription crisis so severe they're grabbing people off streets, including foreign journalists, translators. Britain is spending £150 million on underwater drones while shops and pubs close nationwide due to financial pressure. Shrinkflation is robbing consumers blind with smaller products at higher prices. Scottish pensioners get some heating relief at least. Prince Andrew is dodging questions about Epstein while King Charles avoids him publicly. And the Metropolitan Police is spending millions on diversity officers while cutting actual police from the streets. This is the reality they don't want you seeing clearly. This is why independent voices matter. If you found value in this today, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and seriously consider becoming a channel sponsor. This work doesn't happen without your support. It's what keeps me independent, keeps me honest, and keeps these investigations coming your way without corporate filters. The mainstream won't tell you these stories this way. They can't afford to, but I can. Because I answer to you, not to advertisers or executives. Your support makes that possible, and I don't take that lightly. So if you believe in journalism that doesn't pull punches, that connects the dots they want kept separate, step up and back this channel. It matters more than you might think. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and don't let them tell you everything is fine when it clearly isn't. Stay sharp out there.